the state. That is the 9th highest in the nation. In fact, those numbers may go up even more. Several high-profile companies are due to call or already call North Carolina home. Apple, for one example, building a campus in Raleigh, creating 3,000 jobs for North Carolinians while bringing an investment of $1 billion to the state. The jobs will be for software engineers, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other related fields. Apple also says it'll invest $100 million to support schools and community initiatives in the greater Raleigh area. Closer to home, Cabarrus County getting a huge energy boost. A Red Bull distribution hub is coming to Concord. Going to cost $740 million and bring more than 400 jobs. Red Bull and Roche North America are planning to build a state-of-the-art 2 million square foot beverage production hub. It's all going to be located at the old Philip Morris plant that you see right here on your screen. This investment will go into Concord by the year 2027. Now, just last week we told you about a major expansion coming to Lincoln County. Bosch is expanding its tool accessory plant. It'll create 400 new jobs over the next 5 years for people in our area. This is a $130 million investment into Lincoln County. Now, the recent economic growth we've seen was very different just 5 years ago. In tonight's cover story, we break down what's changed.
Transportation businesses, construction companies, and real estate firms have a lot more competition now than they did 5 years ago. Those three industries saw the biggest percentage increase for new business establishments. When it comes to solely looking at the number of businesses in a sector, tech and science winds up in the top three, likely linked to the startups now calling North Carolina home. This data can be used to look at economic activity as well. For example, this map shows the number of establishments in every zip code in the state. The darker the color, the more there are. So the data tells us that the places with the most businesses include Charlotte and Raleigh, Morrisville and Wilmington. The data also shows us that micro businesses, those employing 9 or fewer employees, are growing in popularity. There are about 180,000 in the state now, 10% more than there were in 2016. But it's not just the little guys growing. Large enterprises, companies with 1,000 or more workers, saw growth as well, up about 19%. Over the years, the data shows more than 108,000 new people entered North Carolina's workforce. And those additional employees mean North Carolinians are making $48.9 billion more in payroll than in 2016. Money which goes back into our economy.
Some industries did take a hit, however, in the last 5 years. There are fewer businesses related to mining, manufacturing, management, and wholesale trade.